Okay. So, what we're going to go over today is now that you've sort of triaged your clients and you've given them some loving and you're starting to organize who is in the immediate pipeline, what we want to start doing is triaging your business. We want to be able to give you some ways to manage contingency planning regardless of how things change. So with that, I'm going to take us over to the PowerPoint slide, and hopefully you all can see that.
Yep.
Okay. So very quickly, this is going to be a fast one. We are going to take a very high level view of how the world is operating, because what we should be looking for first is how the virus is acting. The way the virus is acting is what's triggering municipalities and states to restrict travel. The restriction on travel and the way that companies can have people come to work is the biggest impact you're going to see on business travel demand, leisure travel demand. So it all starts with us keeping an eye on what the high level view is. We're going to talk a little bit about contingency planning, and we're going to walk you through an Excel workbook that will be loaded up here in the group after the call, and you can start playing with it. We're just going to explain why we designed it the way we did, show you where you're going to work inside the document, and then there'll be a blank version of this at the end of the call. And then finally, kind of walking you through, what does that homework look like? What should I be doing over the next week if I have the time? And we are very respectful of the fact that there is very little way for any of us to know when a new demand is going to be placed on us in order to step away from fun things like planning and taking care of something more immediate. So this is the narrative arc of what we're going through. You know, we talk about storytelling in our marketing and our developing your story part of our travel business mastermind. Well, there's a narrative arc around the coronavirus, and right now at that beginning stage where we are today, it's about us all staying at home and flattening the curve. That's why we're not allowed to go to work. That's why some states are now restricting movement within the states. But what we know is that we have not gotten ahead of the curve. So what we're going to see over time on that narrative arc is we are unfortunately going to see an increasing rate of new cases and unfortunately new deaths. That's the way these numbers work. And it is a horrible thing. And there are some wonderful people out there, first responders, doctors, nurses. The hospitals in New York City are, fighting with everything they've got to try to control that rate, but it is going to go up. That's just the way the numbers work. And as a result, the personal travel restrictions are tightening. I think I saw today that a bunch of the states around Washington, D.C. tightened travel restrictions. Where I live, they're now closing down county parks and some of the state parks because people have not been using these facilities with the physical distancing guidance that they're supposed to. So you're going to see even more travel restrictions happen in places where perhaps they haven't. But what we know about the math is that if we honor these concepts, we will soon start to see the first signs of a sustained decline in the rate of the new cases and deaths. That's what happened in China. That's what happened in South Korea. We think we had a blip in Italy where it kind of plateaued. They did have some increases last week, but even the health minister in Italy is saying, we think we see light at the end of the tunnel. We just have to be persistent. And then finally, what we're going to see over time is as that is sustained and the epidemiologists, the people who head up the health industry in the different marketplaces that we send our travelers to, that we travel to, is then they're going to start to analyze that data. And if it's sustained, they're going to start to lift restrictions. At the same time, without putting the media on here, the media hype around this is going to slow down. And I'm not saying that the media hyped the facts. What I'm saying is that this is the most important thing in the news right now. And as a result, you get that cycle where, a story happens, people read it, they push it out to social media with their friends, and then it just keeps going around and around. and we're all paying attention to the same type of news. When those stories start turning good and those are being passed around, then people's spirits are going to be lifted. They start to hear that a municipality says you can go back to the parks. They hear a school district say we're definitely going to hold graduation in June because we've gotten permission. And then people are going to start to take a breath. And what we're hoping is that some economic activity will return, and that will solve the other big part of this problem, which is, do your clients have the ability to control the losses on their finances and start to dream about discretionary spending? So this has been the narrative arc. It's moved, and it's been one of the biggest problems for all of us, is that if you were back in late February, this was mostly contained in Asia. It was starting to creep into Italy. Lombardy and some of the northern Italy was starting to go through some pain. And we were all sort of monitoring the news, and people like Myrna were reconfiguring trips and itineraries, and ships were pulling into port early, and therefore airline trips had to be rebooked. Well, we were still thinking we might have some spring income at the end of February. And of course, what we found by the middle to end of March was that no, we had a global shutdown, and now maybe we might have income in the summertime. If trips don't get canceled that are on the books and haven't not had to be canceled up to now, is there a possibility there'll be a little bit of money in the bank account by August? We don't know. But what we do know today is that this shutdown has closed off any travel through the end of April. And if you think about how a travel industry ramps up, calling employees back, retraining them, cleaning hotels, cleaning cruise ships, cleaning airplanes, moving airplanes back to hubs, there's going to be a period of time where, are we thinking again, maybe July or August, people will be traveling again as we get that up? We don't know. But the nice thing is that if you look at these different scenarios and you put your numbers in a cash flow statement that reflects in the columns, reflects the months that we're talking about here. And as you push revenue by canceling a trip or rescheduling a trip, as you push that revenue into a different month based on that booking, you can start to develop contingency plans, especially if your business is an important income contributor to your household. And that's what we're going to go over today. So contingency planning, none of this should be a surprise. Your income is basically commissions, for the most part, that's where your bank account gets filled. Some of you do service fees, and some of you have other sources of income. I know some travel advisors who, sell travel accessories, or they have another side hustle. And that's all part of your contingency planning. You also may, as we'll talk a little bit later, you may have cash that you can tap, liquid assets. That might help get your business through. We're going to talk about that and show you how you use that in an Excel spreadsheet. Now, your expenses vary. Myrna has been warning me that, Rich, there is no one size fits all. It depends on what host agency someone's with, whether or not, they've got the balance between commission and monthly fees. Some of you get some of your services in your monthly fee. Others of you do get services from your host, but decide to supplement. So that's why we're going to leave a lot of these Excel spreadsheets open for you to put in additional columns and do the word other. Rich, I've got this as well. This is the time, if you have the time, to start pulling out your bank statements, pulling out your checking account, going through that data and starting to plot it in your cash flow. And frankly, what we also want you to think about very strongly is, if this business does fund a good deal of your personal monthly expenses, then you can take some of the strain off your business by also analyzing your personal monthly expenses. So this is what we're going to show you in a few minutes. This is what a cash flow statement looks like. It's a very simplistic form. I've built formulas into this sheet. So there's certain things you don't have to do. Like you don't have to do where it says total income, that is totaled for you. As long as you fill in the rows above, then that will fill in on its own. And then all the formulas on the bottom, totaling your expenses, giving you an idea of what your net cash flow looks like, And also, if you've got a beginning cash balance, if you've got money sitting in your agency's bank account, if you're managing your income in a business bank account, you can start to see where over the months are you going to be lean. And that'll start to give you some idea about, hey, I may have 3 or 4 months where I need some kind of financial assistance. And what we did find out on Friday is that the SBA loans are going to be out there. Unemployment is being extended to self-employed people for the first time. So there are going to be other income sources. And as you start to apply for those, you can plot them in this Excel spreadsheet to see how that impacts your numbers.
Yeah, and the other thing that doing this exercise will help you figure out is, as if you're an independent contractor working under a host agency, depending on your business, you may be better off going the SBA loan, or you may be better off with the unemployment benefits. I mean, until you do these numbers, it's really hard to evaluate that. But yeah, the bigger your loss is, you're probably going to be looking more towards the SBA loan. But if you're just, if you don't have a big travel agency business, then the unemployment might be the easiest way to go.
Yeah. And
but yeah, but what Richard said, just one quick thing,
is
the beginning cash balance. I mean, this is simple. This is just cash flow. This is basically, it may, don't be like intimidated by all these lines and graphs and things. It's literally just how much cash do you have at the beginning? How much more did you add? How much do you take out each month, and what's left? And you literally do that over and over and over. So it's really simple, but it's super important because it's going to show you how many months of runway you have before you run out of money.
Right.
And, of course I'm sure Richard's going to, I'll let you go to the next slide because I think you're going to talk about this thing next.
Yes. So again, if you look at the arc, what we know is that there are different scenarios. So let's say this is the best case scenario, because if we think this may happen, then you know what? You might see some element of your business booking or actually traveling, depending upon what your travel is. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as early as June. So I've been on the phone with a lot of DMOs, destination management organizations like convention and visitors bureaus, tourist boards. And all of them agree that whenever travel restrictions get lifted, the best market to be in, and I know it doesn't generate a tremendous amount of commissions for people like you, is it's going to be the domestic drive markets. It's going to feel safe to people. But domestic business travel may be picking up. So you also may have the ability, if you can get domestic business travel into your mix, you might be able to get something out of that. And if they're good businesses that spend on a mid-range hotel, you might find that, it's enough money to pay for your CRM for the month or something. We don't expect the cruise industry to have much capacity early on in any of these scenarios. And we're already seeing emails with heavy discounting. So if you've got a heavy mix of cruise clients, then you're going to have to adjust, past experiences about what a commission looks like on a Seabourn, on a Celebrity, on a Royal, because, once you start seeing what those marketing ads look like, well, if it's 55% of what you normally would have booked in good times pre-corona, your commissions are going to reflect the same thing, unless there's some bonus incentives that the cruise lines start to put out there. But what we can see, and you'll see this over the next 3 scenarios, is that it will grow slowly over time. These are corporations. They are not going to ramp up immediately. The airlines are not going to suddenly throw 65, 70% of their capacity out there. They're going to start to test the market. They're going to start to see if we don't slip backwards with, physical distancing. So you're not going to have a ton of capacity in any of the specific categories that you make money off of. But some places will come back first. So for example, let's say, in June, we have a modest June. Well, by August, maybe Mexico and Canada are looking at the American number of new COVID cases, and we're all feeling better. Maybe those borders get lifted, and now those resorts start to open, which means they're going to coordinate with the airlines and say, you've got to bring the lift back I want to fill some of these rooms and I need more capacity into Cancun Airport. And what you'll have is that gradual coming back. Very frankly, and I'm saying this with all honesty from what I've been listening to with other experts, much smarter than me, cruise capacity is going to be limited under every scenario. They've got an issue to deal with because a lot of the media focused on them. They're going to have to do a lot of heavy marketing. But here's the thing. I was looking at a Royal Caribbean Facebook ad today. And all it was an ad announcing the changes and when they're going to start to bring ships back. And I would say 30% of the comments from Facebook users were very positive about taking a cruise. So they haven't, this issue hasn't destroyed that market. But as you look at your typical bookings, you're going to have to realize only a portion of your bookings is going to be emotionally ready to listen to a marketing pitch from you, to call you because they did see an ad somewhere. I read something from Gallup poll where 20 some odd % of Americans told Gallup it's going to be at least 12 months before they're comfortable booking a cruise again. And 1 out of 10 respondents said, I don't know that I'll ever book a cruise again. This is changing American traveler behaviors, and that has to be incorporated into your contingency plans as you start to pull yourself out of this with the rest of us. Some other potential scenarios. What if it's only July and we kick everything out? Think about that, because again, here we are. It's April. You've got May, June, July, and then maybe you'll start seeing some revenue. Okay, how are you going to do for 3 to 4 months with absolutely no money in the bank account? And I don't want to scare people, because a friend of mine who's a travel advisor, does destination weddings. She had 4 contracts signed 3 weeks ago, I think it was. I was talking to her 3 weeks ago, and she signed. How crazy is this? I had 4 brides sign with me. If she's charging fees for that service, she's got some cash in her bank account. The brides were willing to pay her something, and now she's starting to ease the strain on her business. Worst case scenario, and I'm hearing from most economists and travel experts, this is closer to what they're expecting. They're expecting the industry to start coming back maybe mid to late July, starting to kick in with modest capacity by August. So if you've got August bookings, they may sail, they may fly, depending again on how those countries are also dealing with their coronavirus issues. But we may be looking at January before we're getting, and I don't even want to use the word normal, because I don't know how long it's going to take us to get back to normal. I saw one forecast. It could be 2 years before the lodging industry has an average daily rate, a RevPAR, revenue per available room, and occupancies similar to what we had ending December of 2019. Possibly 2 years before we've got that level of demand in the marketplace. But building contingency plans means that you can pivot as things change. And having something like an Excel spreadsheet where you load the numbers up in the blank document, save the blank document when we send it to you, or when you pull it off of our Facebook page, save it as a blank example, and then we'll show you, use some kind of naming convention so this is my worst case scenario, this is my middle to best case scenario. And you can go back in and change those at any time. And maybe you don't request a loan now, but if you see this is going to get kicked out an extra month or two, and your numbers say, boy, we really could use that $20,000 line of credit, we could use that SBA loan, you might want to change your plans. But that's the benefit of using something like Excel. That's the benefit of having something you can go back in, looking at your bookings and your postponements and everything that's coming out of Travel Joy or whatever tool you use, and dropping it back in, and then seeing what those numbers at the bottom, bank balance and profit, seeing what happens down there. So with that, I'm going to switch over to our spreadsheet, and we're just going to walk you through this for a couple of minutes. I tried to make it as simple as possible, And I tried to do as much of the work for you as possible using formulas. So for example, this number is something you input, but this number is a formula. See the formula up here? And so that's done
Richard,
for you. Yep.
just a quick question. So the commission number, does that come from the income statement, or is that
They're going to
something
have
they
to
have to
input
input?
that.
Okay.
They're going to have to go into Travel Joy or Tess or
Client base.
Client Base, and they're going to have to say, okay, for the month of April, I had somebody who did travel in February, and the supplier seems to be paying commissions. They haven't pulled back yet. I don't know. I haven't heard anything yet about suppliers saying they're going to hold commissions.
No,
You
that
know,
not yet.
so
No.
you may have a check coming from a trip that wasn't canceled. Everybody got home safe and sound. And that's why I said maybe this, particular agent was able to put $750. As you can see, I've kind of left May and June empty because if they can't travel in April, there's travel, cruise lines aren't traveling. In fact, the was it Norwegian or Royal? The email I saw was that they pushed it to middle of May, I think,
Middle of May.
is the
And
earliest.
Viking pushed it through the end of June.
Right. So again, listen to what Myrna just said. If you're a heavy Viking seller, your numbers are going to be different than someone who's, doing Carnival, and maybe Carnival is going to be more ambitious, or I don't know, or maybe, Germany opens up sooner, Germany and Hungary and Austria open sooner, and maybe AMA can get back in before Royal or Norwegian can. It is so specific to your business, your preferred suppliers, your clients, where they travel to. So we've tried to just create a blank template here for you so you can at least play with the numbers and start to see what it's telling you. What is the narrative arc of your business during this time? So what you're going to do is you don't have to do any of the totals, but we do want you to also fill out things. I was reading online the other day. There's still a lot of agents who have storefronts. They've got leases on those storefronts. So we put that in there for people. I've heard some agents who are canceling their E&O insurance temporarily. I don't know what kind of plan you are on. When I owned a food establishment, I paid my E&O at the beginning of the year, and I didn't pay monthly. And, everybody does it differently. That's why we left this open. Do you pay yourself an owner's salary, or do you just take something out of the profits at the end? Everybody's got a different philosophy. We're leaving it this way so that you can play with it. And then what you'll see is this is a formula, and you don't have to do these. So on the version that will be loaded in Facebook, and you can ask us via email, you'll see these are shaded different colors. I didn't shade them here just in case Zoom or your computer didn't translate the colors. But look at what happens. So let's say, for example, I change October to $5,000. We moved somebody up from June. They finally, and we were able to travel. It's going to change the numbers down below. So I'm going to go back to, I think I had it at 2,500. So right now, this person's ending cash balance for October is 8,295. Let's take it back down to $3,000. Let's take $2,000 out of their commissions, and it takes $2,000 out of the ending cash balance. Real easy, simplistic, trying not to overwhelm you. Just, we'll show you how you can do it a lot easier. This is for you to also think about if you have a contribution in your household that your business pays into. You need this business for these financial purposes. We've built a monthly expenses form, because what you'll see is on your income statement, we're gonna total that up for you on a monthly basis, and we're going to be able to let you say, do I have enough money? So if you want to fill that out, and you can change this percentage at the bottom. So right now I said, this particular travel advisor, their partner, their spouse covers 66% of the household expenses. But when you change this, it's going to change some of the other forms to show you, well, if these are your total expenses in your household, maybe if you and your partner lowered some of that and you stayed at 33%, here's what your contribution can actually generate. The kinds of things that most of you do when it comes to marketing, we gave you a special tab for that. And again, what we wanted to do is we also wanted you.
Thank you. I'll be home down in a minute.
Hi, Julianne.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay, dear. It's okay.
You told me dinner's ready.
I know.
I didn't know you could hear me. Sorry.
We left the microphones open just in case you want to ask questions. So ask us questions if you have any.
Oh boy.
What are the major monthly expenses for most of you guys? I mean, I know some of you pay for if you're a virtuoso agent, you may be paying for that subscription on behalf of a client. If you know what that marketing expense is, I don't know what Virtuoso is allowing right now, but that may be something you have to turn off. And so there are other things that are so specific to the consortia you're a part of, to the host that you might be able to add an expense, upgrading with them. We left this open. Now, the nice thing is you can go in, you can click, you can do insert, you can put in whatever that option is. And this total, look, it's still going to cover all of those columns, the rows in that column. So you can expand this if you have additional marketing expenses. And the nice thing is this going to send it over to your income statement as well as to your cash flow statement. So marketing right now, you don't have to fill that. It's coming. There's a formula that goes here. And as a result, this number, $264.90 in April, shows up over here. It shows up as $265 because I've got the decimal points closed out. So that's how easy that works. And you don't have to fill that in. But we did that because otherwise this would have marketing and you'd have to list all of these things here. We figured just do it on a separate tab. Other expenses. Some of you have virtual assistants. Without a lot of business, you may want to tell that person, look, I need to take you down a notch. I'm paying you $250 a month. When I'm racking in $6,000 in commissions a month, that's okay for me, but I can't do that right now. You can change these numbers. These numbers will all be blank when you get this. And again, it'll reduce this number. And if you go back to here, you'll see under other 300, there's the formula. So you don't have to input that there. You just go to the appropriate place and that's where it'll be. Okay. So now the purpose of all of this is to get it to roll up into some kind of an income statement where at a very high level, you can start to see profits and losses, my personal expenses, and I'm going to fix this because this should be multiplied by 3. And I'll do that right now because there's 3 months for every quarter. And you'll start to see, well, what's the difference? Well, if my sales are X, and my expenses are Y, what's the difference between that? Well, this person needs $2,677 more to cover the expenses that they agreed to cover in their household because they're losing too much money. Over time, as that person moves through the quarters, that should change because business is coming back. You're getting a hold of your expenses and trimming them back. And as a result, you'll have a better control over paying off all your bills. And these numbers will then define for you what your choice is. What's your contingency plan? Because if those numbers are dramatically in opposition to each other, then you're going to struggle to pay those bills. So I'm now going to go back to the PowerPoint slideshow. If you have any questions on that, please send me your email address. Send it to richard@travelbusinessmastermind.com. We'll add you to the Slack thread for this special session, and you can drop your questions into the Slack thread, and my phone is set up to send me notifications. So, I'll see it, and we can either do a quick Zoom meeting, and I can go over your Excel spreadsheet with you, or you can wait until next Monday, and we can take a look at it then. So your homework is really straightforward. We want to plot your cash flow in this cash flow statement. And we want to start thinking about those 2 to 3 plans that reflect at least the worst and best case scenario. So what you can do is when you pull this down, and the name of it is, I think it's 2020 cash flow, plan or something like that. You can save it to your hard drive. If you now go in, you open that up and you do save as, and you save it to the same folder, you can use a naming convention to say, my travel agency's name is, Stevens Travel, best case scenario. Stevens Travel, worst case scenario. And now you've got those Excel spreadsheets sitting on your hard drive with some estimation of what your sales and your profits, and you can start to think about, what am I going to do here? You can also start to think about, as things change and you hear that certain cruise lines are pushing off their first debarkations till June, and that 60% of your bookings are with the majority of those cruise lines, you can go back in, you can estimate what those commissions are going to look like based on the different policies of each cruise line, and you could plot that. And now you can start to see, oh, look at that, I'm going to have a 2-month gap. Now that loan is looking more attractive to me. We also so I did include the SBA's link here. So if you click on that, it is an active link and it will take you to their loan assistance program. It's pretty straightforward, the verification. And once you click those boxes, it's going to send you to the form and you can start filling it out. ASTA assures us that for the most part, the forms are a lot simpler this time than they have been in previous years. Unemployment insurance, of course, is a state-based program, and we couldn't put all the different states in this document. But if you Google Virginia unemployment insurance, guaranteed it's going to take you to to a Google search that'll have that URL pretty high up. And now you can take a look at, what does that money look like. Now, there is the federal grant that's coming out for each household. Everything I've read said that as long as a household has identified itself through taxes, they're going to figure out who gets what money based on dependents. And they're going to direct deposit that money into your bank account. And I think they said it's like 12 days off or 14 days off, if I remember correctly.
Something like that. 2 to 3 weeks is what I read.
That's some short-term money.
So really, and the reason we wanted to do this today is because with everything that's going on, it can get really disorienting. Like, what should you do, right? So you're hearing about these programs, you're wondering if you even qualify, you're wondering if it's a good idea, but you don't know. And in order to know, you really have to kind of spend a little time with your numbers. And I just have to say, personally, I did this exercise over the weekend. I figured out the expenses and tracked it all down. It took like an hour, but now I have a good picture of, okay, so if the worst happens and nothing travels till November, what does my business look like, and how can I, and what do I need to do to keep it going? Is there stuff I can put on hold? Is there stuff I can cancel? Is there capital available? How am I going to keep things going during that time? How are we going to make up for that lost income? And so it's really just a matter of just having it. Once you see it and you have clarity, then you can actually solve the problem instead of just worrying about it. So I encourage you to just do it. It's a little bit painful at first because you're like, it's a little scary to consider that you may not have travelers for more than just a month or two. But on the other side of this somewhat painful exercise is clarity and a path forward, which is what we all need. Is we know that this will end. We just need to make sure we're in a good position when it does end to capture that demand once it resumes. Right. And so that means managing your finances properly during this time. And yes, if you have a lease, talk to your landlord. A lot of landlords are being lenient I have a travel agency client here in Baton Rouge, and her landlord just said, don't worry about April. We'll deal with May when it comes. I mean, people are being different from other times when stuff like this happened. People are being generally very helpful where they can, because it is affecting every industry, not just travel. And I think I've had good feedback from people about how they've been able to, negotiate things with vendors, even software vendors, even leases, things like that. So don't hesitate to reach out to these people. But the main thing is you need to figure out what you need. And then once you know what you need, then you can make a case for the relief that you're seeking.
And the nice thing is if you do have a storefront and that lease is $1,500 and you're able to, forward that out, the person says to you, look, I've got your security. Maybe you'll be able to pay me $3,000 in December. You can go into the spreadsheet. You could take the zero there. You could build it back up over here to 3,000. And now you can start to see. And the best part is that if travel does come back, and I do believe it may not be a U like it has in previous recessions. I think it's going to be bent a little bit forward. That's what we're seeing in China right now and South Korea. What I do believe that does for you is it gives you the ideas about how you can pivot. So if, for example, you know that those cruise bookings are being, canceled, the person wanted to go this year, it was a milestone, they're thinking of something else now. Well, if you can look at those numbers and say, wow, that's a $1,700 commission that I just lost. But you know what? There are some really high quality resorts in Mexico, and Mexico, may open up earlier, or, Rocky Mountaineer, the upscale, train in Canada opens early. You might be able to come up with ideas if you know what the numbers look like. If you don't know what the numbers look like, you can't start to create the pivot plan for when you're coming out of this. And what you may find is certain categories are going to be off limits because of, the view that some travelers have about that particular product. And as a result, you may need to spend some of the time between now and when travel starts opening up, when European travel starts opening up, thinking about what am I going to do? So for example, I know some travel advisors who are thinking about meetings and incentives travel. They already do group business for leisure. Well, an incentive trip on the corporate side is kind of it's a leisure group, but it's a group, the affinity group is the sales team at a company. And so what you can start to do is you start to see those numbers change. You can say, okay, I need a group that's going to drive me a commission of $16,000 between September and December. That gives you something you can work with. You're not just, dancing in the dark. You're sitting there going, no, there's some specific numbers. And once you have a target, you can start to think about what other categories you can pivot to. Going through this exercise gives you that data that then allows you to start to be creative like that. So go through the exercise, as painful as it is. We've tried to make it the least painful we can make it by incorporating the formulas. So when you see that posted in the Facebook group, download it, name it on your hard drive in some special place, and start playing with it. And what we will do in the next couple of weeks is start taking some examples of mock agencies and going through that exercise of, well, my business plan needs to change. I need to maybe look at this kind of an industry, or I'm going to move away from ocean cruises because European river cruises came back first. We're just going to show you some ways to think about that creatively. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Julianne, how are you doing?
Hi, Julianne. Do you have any questions for us?
Just one. I have been, I'm a little behind in doing my personal tax or my business taxes for 2019. So do you know when they're figuring out for the families if they're going to be taking 2018 or 2019?
I imagine so, because they extended the tax filing deadline for 19. So I don't think it's gonna matter.
So I'm just wondering to hurry up and try to get my taxes done, but I know my accountant is buried. So
I know we got ours done like right before this all happened, but I don't even know if she filed them yet. Like we had literally just signed them like 2 weeks ago.
I know. All this other stuff was going on, and I was so glad they said, "Oh, we're going to extend it, yay!" But now I don't know.
Yeah, I imagine they're just gonna. I mean, they're probably gonna look at 18 if they don't have 19.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay, just thought I haven't seen it anywhere.
No, I haven't.
I haven't either. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I know with the SBA loans, like Richard said, it's super easy now. Like I did mine today. I had looked at it over the weekend and I had to download all these forms and it was very confusing. And I had started it, but I hadn't finished. So I was glad I waited because the new online form, it takes like 10 minutes. Like you
Really?
just, yeah, it's really easy. All they ask for is like your last 12 months of income and expenses. So they're not even, I mean, I'm sure eventually they're going to ask for more information, like once they do the initial review, but just to get it started is not that hard. So,
I wasn't going to apply, but then I thought this year, I'm just trying to redo everything. And I'm like, my 12-year-old desktop computer could really be replaced. So I don't know if that kind of thing, like supplies, things to run your business will be something you could apply for loan for.
I mean, I think the thing about the loan that's interesting is if you're using it for things like rent, payroll, stuff like that, they're actually going to forgive part of the loan.
Right.
But I don't know what the gray area in terms of what's considered an expense like that. Like if you have like software that you have to subscribe to, I imagine that would be included.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that the little ins and outs, I don't think they've even figured out yet, to be honest.
No.
I think they've literally just like get your application in. I mean, you don't have to take it if you could get approved and then change your mind. I just figure get in there, get in line. It's probably going to take them a while to go through all these applications, and at least you'll give yourself some options.
Right. Okay. Well, let me think about it. I better get back to my taxes and then do all this stuff you just gave us to
But
do.
this is really it's not as hard as you think. I mean, I know it looks kind of like a lot of rows and things, but it's really just the hardest thing is estimating your future commissions, because that's where you have to dig into your client files and see who's traveling and it's probably going to cancel, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, but it's valuable though, because it just shows you the reality of what could happen, and then you can make a plan for how you're going to get through it.
Right. Yeah, I have 3 big family trips in June and July, and I don't think that they can reschedule because it's built around their kids, their schools. So 11 of them are all going off to Portugal in July, and it's really complicated, all those flights. I don't even
know. June is really iffy. I have 2 couples traveling in June, but I'm pretty much expecting them to cancel. I think July might still happen though.
Yeah, there's a
hope for July. There's hope for July.
Portugal hasn't been hit.
That's where they're going to Portugal. Yeah.
I mean,
but now Portugal may decide not to let us in because we're American,
because we haven't.
Yeah.
But then they have to realize they get people in, they're going to start spending money and they're going to help their economy.
Right.
But well, my June trips are going to Costa Rica, and I'm like, oh, Costa Rica is such a nice, clean country. Maybe they probably want to keep it that way. Won't let anyone.
But yeah, exactly. Then again, it's the Americans. We've got to do our job. We've got to knock this thing down.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I haven't talked to my clients yet about postponing their June trips.
Are there any deposits due?
No, they've been they're very good about it. Actually, they're not due, but one that's going at the end of June did want to go ahead and put down a deposit. The other one, she doesn't have to yet. So.
Right. And are you booking through some tour operators, some inbound?
It's through a tour operator. Now, the only thing that made me nervous is when I have not used this tour operator before. It's a small one in Costa Rica, but when I did a search on a couple of the forums for recommendations, she came out on top all the time. So, and she's been really great to work with. So it's a small family run business. That's the only thing. If they have a lot of cancellations, you worry about their cash flow.
Is it Stephanie Sheehy and Il Viaggio?
Yes. Oh, don't tell me a bad story, please.
No. Stephanie and her husband Emilio are 2 of the most decent human beings.
Oh, good.
They started this business 17 years ago.
Wow.
16 years ago. They invest in the community. They helped create the first disabled accessible beach through recycling plastics throughout Costa Rica and building the mats that the wheelchairs are pushed down the beach. They're darling people.
Oh, no, that's good. I mean, you know, maybe we can work around it and go in August. Maybe we'll have to see.
Right.
Everyone's work schedules are so goofed up so that when they do go back to work, who knows if they can take vacation time then again.
That is the problem, is that's all this uncertainty, which is why you've got to build out contingency plans and
Right.
say, okay, worst case is not only the stuff that I listed there, but like you said, what if people come back and bosses are like, no, we've got to catch up on work
Right.
to keep you here, to keep you employed, to keep a paycheck coming. And if you disappear for 2 weeks or whatever, that's one less person who produces income for the business, and you're putting all of us at
It's they're doing just 10 days, so maybe they can squeeze it out. I don't know. We'll see. I mean,
There's no telling.
there's
telling.
nothing. And
Just take it like 1 month at a time. like for me, it's like, okay, all the May people are taken care of. Now I'm dealing with the June people, then it's the July people, and just
well, it does.
what
And
happens.
that's a good thing if you can say it's good. It gives us time to rethink everything about our businesses and
Yes.
time to really think about maybe some
And this is
directions to go in.
yeah,
Right.
and this cash flow exercise is something you should do anyway in your business.
Oh
But
yeah, for sure.
of course, you know, at times like this, it
Under
becomes
happier
critical.
conditions.
But yeah, it's something that's necessary.
Yeah.
All right.
So, okay. Well, thank you for doing that. That will be helpful.
Yeah.
The links were in on the Facebook
He's
page.
going to put them on the
I'm
Facebook
gonna
page.
I'm gonna go back into the Excel spreadsheet, save it, and load it up on the Facebook page.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yep. Okay,
Thanks,
Julianne.
for joining
Okay.
us.
Well, it's time for dinner now.
I know,
Dinner
I
and a
have to go
glass of
cook.
wine.
I have to go start cooking
Sorry
now.
again. I didn't know.
So,
Okay.
all right. Bye,
Everybody
guys.
have a good night.
Okay.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.